And we're live. Not really. It's being recorded.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, we're back for another episode of the 8 Domains podcast with my friend.
With our hands?
Yes, Tim
Okay.
Evko.
Yeah.
I'll let Tim kind of introduce himself a little bit. You have a Substack. You have a podcast that you do. I'd love to hear about that. I know Tim, as I know most of my guests on the podcast, through Jiu Jitsu. And we've shared a lot of suffering together over the last couple of years, and that is somewhat of a way to make friends these days. If you're a middle-aged dad, you join a jiu-jitsu school and you make friends. So anyways, give me a better introduction of yourself.
Yeah, I'll try to top that if I can. I think mostly I have been doing the suffering. I mean, you've been doing jiu-jitsu a lot longer than I have. But yeah, I'm a father of 2. I've got 2 boys, a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. I work as a software engineer, which means I don't work that much, which is why I'm here at 9 a.m. on a
Thursday. 9 a.m.
Yeah. But we met through jiu-jitsu. It's something that I think, you become a dad, you smoke meats, you drink bourbon, and you do jiu-jitsu. They just give you a manual after a certain period of time. And we met, and it's been a blast ever since. But yes, I do write. I do have a podcast. I write a lot about kind of like life in the modern digital age with technology and all that sort of thing. I wouldn't say that I'm anti-technology, especially as somebody who contributes to quite a bit of it for a living. Mm-hmm. But I'm very skeptical of modern technology, if you will. So that's where like a lot of my writing and podcasting and speaking kind of goes into kind of that angle.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, whenever I thought to have you on the podcast, it was because of some of the things that I've seen you write and some of the perspectives and takes that I've seen you have that I thought would be really interesting, but also just being another dad, young children, busy lives. But then you still seem, at least from like what I've observed, you still seem to have a really good connection and attachment to yourself and what you need to take care of yourself in order to be able to show up for the people in your life. So the 8 domains is just about that. So how do you want to experience yourself in the different 8 domains? And it's been a while since we've had an episode, so I'm going to reintroduce them and kind of go through a spiel, and then we can kind of launch from there, okay? So the 8 domains are this: our physical domain, our emotional, mental domain, our spiritual or inspirational domain, the relational domain, which is everything that is not your romantic relationship, and then you have your romantic or marital domain, your vocational, financial, and recreational domain. And the answer that we start with under that framework to discover and articulate your values is, what type of experience do I want to have in my physical self? Or what type of experience do I want to have with myself as a partner? Like, how do I want to experience myself as a dad? How do I want to experience myself as a software engineer? And some of these questions might seem kind of like not very important, but I think they are, because when we are operating from a pursuit of our values, the whole thing shifts from being driven by other things to being diligent towards the outcomes that we want for ourselves. So that's a big concept that I've been considering lately, is the difference between being driven and being diligent. And I think that's what the 8 domains helps us do. It turns us from being driven by fear, driven by imposter syndrome, driven by anxiety, driven by urgency placed on us by outside extrinsic motivators. Because everything that we talk about as being driven, we drive a nail into a board, we drive our car, we drive ox to plow a field, we drive home a point. All of the things being driven are being driven by something else. Mm-hmm. They're not choosing it. And so I don't think that being driven necessarily is an absolute bad thing, but I prefer diligence, which diligence is the pursuit of a positive outcome instead of trying to avoid or being reactive to a negative one.
Right.
So anyways, the question is, how do you want to experience yourself? And then from there, you start to build these strategies or disciplines that will keep you in line with those things. And so the other day you had sent me a message, which I think is wild, by the way. Did you know that person?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
you do know the person. I was like, Jesus, like, are you like? But anyway,
I have a lot of those messages, but from other people who read my writing and
Gotcha.
reach out but this was somebody I know that reached out, and like I said, I've had a couple of people send me that type of message before, so that's why I sent it.
And so that's a really good place for us to start. And for context, the message essentially was like, hey, I watch you live your life, and you do this and you do that, and you take care of yourself in this way, but you're still taking care of yourself in this other way. And I think the guy said that like he's about to have either a kid or another kid, and he's like, how do I do it all? How do I manage it all? Mm-hmm. And so we can maybe just start there. Yeah. Of like, tell us what a day in the life of Tim Evko looks like, and not for the sake of like, what I don't want this to be is another one of those broadcasts to where like I wake up at 4 a.m. and I
ice water in the face,
but like as a dad, someone who has a job, a wife, like what are the realistic ways in which you invest in yourself each day, and like what values are we attaching those decisions to?
Yeah, absolutely. So this will just be an ad for Celsius and lots of caffeine.
Yes.
So typical day, right? I work out, exercise about 3 hours a day in between Olympic weightlifting and conditioning and jiu-jitsu, right? So we prioritize sleep, right? That's like a big part of it is if I'm getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night, I'm not a person. Because of this schedule, right? And it is very much not a line by line, all right, at 8:30 I'm here, at 9:15 I'm here. It's not that at all. And I think this is one of the things that contributes to, I wouldn't say being productive because I'm not producing a lot, but to getting all the things that I want to get done in a day. Anyways, so I'll wake up around 7:45, 8 o'clock. My kids, my 2-year-old and 3-year-old, they go down around 8:45, 9. So they're sleeping 12 hours, which is very conducive to being able to get that sleep in. So that is
a luxury.
Absolutely. And I work from home, so I don't necessarily have anywhere to be unless it's a 9 a.m. podcast, and then I have to wake up early.
I appreciate you making the sacrifice today.
Yeah, it was huge. I had to drive about 12 minutes. So
Jesus, I'm sorry.
Real bad. I don't do that in the mornings. I
don't even have a swag bag.
I had to put jeans on.
Jesus, okay. Well,
I don't wear a lot of jeans. Legs don't fit into them. But so I'll wake up around then and have coffee, do some, read my Bible in the morning, and then it's off to exercise for about an hour and a half to 2 hours at a gym that's like 5 minutes away. Sometimes during the week I'll go right to our noon jiu-jitsu class right after, and then around 1 or 2 I'm sitting down for my work day. I work for a lot of tech companies, and so most of them are out in the West Coast, which helps because by the time I'm sitting down, they're just sitting down. And I will then work for the rest of the day until 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I intermittent fast, so I eat like once a day, really giant tub of food that has its own sort of memification. People who know me like to make a lot of jokes about, which is fun. That's kind of a typical day. And, throughout that, because I work from home, I have an office upstairs, but a lot of the times lately I'm downstairs in my kind of kitchen, living room area, working there, because then I can, interact with my wife and kids throughout the day. And that's another thing that's super helpful because, all of this is kind of designed to where I can, be the most productive, while kind of being able to kind of chase after whatever I'm, feel like chasing. And so working from home is a huge help from that, because otherwise if I was at an office 5 to 9 hours a day, none of this would really be possible. I mean, if we're being honest, most of this is because I get to work from home off of a West Coast schedule. And and I think that's important because, comparison is the thief of joy. And then whenever somebody hears about like what your day or my day looks like, and then they start to compare, and we're like, well, there's no way I could work out 3 hours a day. And there's no way that I could like just start working at 1 o'clock and like go to Jiu Jitsu. I know that you're there sometimes twice a day. Sometimes, yeah. It hurts. It takes quite a physical toll. And
so like there's a part of me that is like, well, then just like shut up because you're so incredibly unrelatable to the vast majority of people who are working 9 to 5s. And I get that. And that, but I also think that there is kind of like take what works for you and leave the rest when you're hearing about someone else's story or someone else's, prioritization. And so first I will just say almost like as a disclaimer, like you and I both are not living a normal schedule.
Not anymore. I have done both.
Well, so have I.
Yes. I have done the 2.5 hour one-way commute, waking up at 4:45 to get to the gym for maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And then the rest of the day is just go. And then 11 p.m., shoot, I had needed to be asleep an hour ago. And, die of exhaustion for sleep. I've done that for years. This is a very recent development.
Yeah. Okay, good. So maybe you are somewhat relatable then.
I'll try my best.
So let's just kind of like tick through some of the domains then. Okay, so you obviously are investing in very specific ways into your physical domain. So what are some of your values? So the question is, how do you want to experience yourself in your physical form?
Yeah. So I will preface this by saying I might have what some of you people would refer to as a moderate case of body dysmorphia. So that's a huge motivator in terms of, physical fitness. And I wouldn't even say, I don't really call it health, because I'm not, sitting there thinking about, what are my triglycerides and what's my liver doing? I'm mostly thinking about, can I lift more weight than yesterday? And am I comfortable with how I look in the mirror? All of that besides the point, I very, very much enjoy exercising. I have community there. I have friends there. Most of my close friends, especially, when my wife and I moved out here, my wife was about 6 to 7 months pregnant with our oldest. And so we had maybe a month where both of us would be able to like get out of the house. And so I was like, babe, don't worry about anything. I'm going to go build us community. I'm going to go take care of that so that when we have the baby, like we're not, suddenly alone because, her parents live in New York. My parents they're kind of in that area. And so what I did was I found a CrossFit gym, not like your average, like, Lifetime Fitness or something like that, because it's people just going in and out, but like class based kind of something like that. People are a lot, more close knit. And so I found one of those and I just, got really involved in showing up every day. And then we found a church, which was extremely helpful. And I started to just volunteer there every single week. And by the time, our first was born, we had a bunch of close friends and, community and people that were invested in. So that was super helpful.
Okay, so I think you're taking us into a different domain. So
I apologize.
That's fine. Let's follow what it seems to be. Let's just agree with where things seem to be going. So
sure.
You're talking about like the relational domain.
Mm-hmm.
So I define the relationship domain as like all of my interactions with other people that are not my wife. Mm-hmm. So my kids, my family, my coworkers, my, the barista at Starbucks that hands me my drink, to the person selling the contributor on the corner. Like, how do I want to experience myself as I interact with all of these different people? And one of the things that I think that you just kind of articulated without saying it, like, just, I'm going to paraphrase or I don't know. It sounded like what you were saying is you value experiencing yourself as belonging to a community. like being a part of a community.
Mm-hmm. So this touches on actually one of my other most popular essays that I've written, titled "No One Has Any Friends." There's no cough button, and I just cleared my throat into the mic, so I apologize for that.
Just get out.
Yeah. I'll have to. This was a great interview. I really enjoyed this, Benji. I apologize. Please don't beat me up too hard today at noon. So, no one has any friends. It's this premise about how your schedule's jam-packed, right? Your schedule's jam-packed. My schedule's jam-packed. If we wanted to hang out, you would tell me, in October, I'm free for 3 days, right?
Right. Like whenever I organize these quarterly, or like, you know, they're not even quarterly, but like the rolls in whiskey where we like rent Milton for an hour and then we go to the whiskey house for the rest of the afternoon. Like I've got to plan those things out weeks in advance.
Everybody's busy.
Just to get 6 or 7 guys together.
Yes. And so one of my favorite things is to, you know, drill down into, you know, that feeling of busyness, but at the same time, while you are that busy, how many people in your life can you say that you have established some sort of level of accountability with? And I use the term accountability specifically because there is surface level friendship. That's very easy, right? You can go and you can say, oh, you know, let's go hang out, or, you know, I'm feeling X about Y today. But how many people can you say, hey, that day when you didn't answer my text, you know, that bothered me, or hey, I messed up on this, you know, help talk me through this, that sort of thing. That is something that is rare and I think endangered in our modern era, right? And it all comes down to, well, there are a lot of things, and this is something that I write most often about. But anyways, from a domain-specific perspective, I want to see myself be the type of friend that I wish to see in others, which is holistic. It's not just, yeah, I'm around to hang out, or, you know, something like that. It's the other side of friendship that's like, hey, you know, I noticed you're doing this, and I don't think that's good, or, you know, I set up a whole thing. I invited you over, and then you canceled at the last minute, and that sucked for me. That sort of level of community is rare. It's increasingly rare, and I think it is in terms of like holistic health, it's a need. It's an absolute need.
I totally agree with you that and I think it's a lot of that is lost because we no longer live in like synchronous relationships. We live in asynchronous relationships to where I'll text you and it's totally normal for me to not hear back from you for a day or two.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a big deal. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, like if I said something to you, I was like, hey, do you want to come hang out this weekend? Like if you looked at me and then like just walked away and you didn't come back for 2 or 3 days to answer me, like we would not be friends.
Exactly.
So the loss of synchronous relationships as the primary, or the communication as the primary mode of communication, I think contributes to that. So again, helping define the values. So I heard that you value experiencing yourself as belonging to a community. And then another value in there is you value experiencing yourself as accountable to others, which is a deeper level of relationship than what we're used to. Like I have a good example of this. So David, a long time ago, whenever I was like in the changing room, David and I.
Where's this going?
Exactly. We were in the changing room at Jiu Jitsu, and you know, David's such a nice, like, guy. And he said, you know, as nice guys do, he's like, how are you doing today, Benji? And we did not know each other. I'd maybe been coming around Jiu Jitsu for a few weeks. And I said, well, do you want the honest answer or do you want the polite answer that's going to get us out of this locker room quicker? And he said, I think I'll take the polite answer this time.
Oh, interesting.
Now, fast forward 2 years, he asked me the same question, just like chit-chatty, and I remind him of that conversation, and he was like, no, I really want the real one now. How are you doing? And that's that's so, like, that moment or memory may have meant nothing to him, but for me, I'm like, oh, I'm building that community and I'm building that accountability. Like last night, one of our buddies and his daughter seemed to be going through some stuff, and he came in, or actually she came in, and I was like, hey, where's your dad? And she like seared my soul with her eyes, like this 15, 16-year-old, crucifying eyes. And so then when he came in later, I just walked up to him. I was like, hey, one dad to another dad, if you need to talk about anything, I'm here for you, man. And he might have thought I was joking because he kind of joked it off. It's like, yeah, I might call you. But like, I really do crave those types of connections to where it's more than just like, hey, how you doing, in the polite way. And so I can definitely relate to that. And being somebody who was in the church for the vast majority of my life and most of my adulthood, but now kind of out of that, there is a like, that's how you do it in the South. It's like you go to church and everybody kind of is there under a relatively same mission and set of values, and you can connect. And so without that, I had to be like, well, where else am I going to find this? And so I had to start finding it somewhere else, and that's kind of where I landed with Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I really enjoy about, and it's not just exercise. When you have to fight each other, you're not hiding much.
No,
you can't, because I mean, we've strangled each other, quite a few times. There's a level of honesty that emerges out of that. That you're like, what am I going to hide? We have already experienced the worst that it can get, which is why I love combat sports so much, because after you start taking one of those on, it's like, well, nothing's going to be as bad as Benji, making my eyes pop out of my skull,
Right. So I want to go back to accountability.
Sure.
Because I think that is something that we really haven't talked about much on this podcast, and especially coming from like a male perspective of, we talk a lot about we don't, but like there's so much talk about what is healthy masculinity, what is not healthy masculinity, and like what's toxic and what's not toxic, and kind of trying to get through all of that and just say, like, what does it mean to be accountable to other people in like our context? Yeah.
So when you mentioned, the church as a place of, common goals, shared values, a third place, so to speak, right? I think it is all of these third places, wherever they may be. Technology is yet another. It's eroding them, right? Because it creates this sort of shared sense of community without all of the potential for awkwardness or failures or saying the wrong thing. You can unsend messages and all of that stuff, right? And so in terms of accountability and third places and technology, where I've been obsessing lately at kind of how all of these things relate is, especially the youth, like, you need to kind of force this thing that would have occurred naturally, 20, 30 years ago. And that's also why, modern social media and technology is so addictive, right? Because it's this kind of safetyism that previously didn't exist. You can go and experience something that's like community without ever actually having to do it, right? So your question was, what does accountability mean? Was that your question?
Yeah, like why is that such there's all kinds of questions that come to accountability of like, why is that so important?
Yeah.
Why isn't accountability like as a value so helpful in the long run?
This is okay, perfect setup. Thank you for the softball question. So one of the essays that I sent to you was how to have perfect self-discipline and do everything. Right. And so the premise behind this whole essay was that if you like, I don't necessarily believe in self-discipline. That's funny. Like, somebody who manages to do all of these things in a day, right? I just go and I just do what I like to do, right? That's the secret, right? There is no such thing as inventing will, right? And this makes sense because it's a biological protection, right? If you, and C.S. Lewis has written about this, if you do things, if you were able to do things that you didn't want to, you would severely hurt yourself. You know, like, I don't want to jump off the top of this building. And that's good. It's a survival instinct, right? But we try to invert that for self-discipline. We're like, oh, I really don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. every day and go run 6 miles, but I'm going to make myself do it. Well, no, you're not, right? You're only going to do those things if you want to do them. And so this essay that I wrote was essentially about the formula for self-discipline is working on building those wants. And how you build those wants is you meditate on the end goal, right? And you keep that as a clear picture. And that's what gets you to doing the things when it's hard. Is, okay, I have this end goal and I want that more than I dislike the road to get there. And that's kind of the whole formula. Well, what about when you recognize something in yourself that I should want this, but I don't, you know? And like, I pick a thing, you know, maybe it is, I don't know, losing 20 pounds, getting in shape, right? You're like, I know this is healthy for me. I know I should want it, but I just can't get myself there. What do you do? Right? And this would be the sequel to this essay that I probably should write eventually. And the answer is you just pull your bootstraps. No, that's not the answer.
Went sideways.
Yeah. The answer is accountability. The answer is having people in your life that you can discuss these things with in an honest way. People that know you, right? People that are in your life that are not necessarily people that you pay, sorry, Benji, and to your whole business, to ask you about these things, but like friends and family and community and a level of trust and honesty that is there, then they can go and remind you, hey, you're not doing this. Why aren't you doing this? You said you would, right? So that you can start to build this, and it's not just that, it's people's, their encouragement and their help and their assistance, right? But that's the answer, right? And that's one of the reasons that accountability is so good, but also because it builds integrity. It builds, these values that are so important to yourself and your surrounding community, right? That's where accountability comes in, is it builds that level of integrity. Because again, if there's nobody to witness, like, we know when there's nobody to witness our behavior, right? And so it gets very easy to start behaving in a way that is not good. And define not good however you want. Like, everybody's got their own definition, right? But accountability is kind of the thing that, gets everything back into focus and perspective.
So one of the things that I was, if I can try to wrangle my brain back into the conversation that we were just having, which was a really good one, is you had said, okay, give me your formula. I liked your formula that I read.
Oh, I got to pull it up.
Oh, you don't even remember your own formula?
I don't. I wrote this article a few years ago. Okay. And since then I realized, hey, if I want to apply this to my own life, I need to involve more accountability in my life. And I don't necessarily, let me see if I can find this.
So it essentially was like, I think what the formula was getting at is the why has to kind of supersede the motivation.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think I know, like, I see it all the time on TikTok and social media. There's so much about motivation and how motivation is crap. And to some degree, yes, it is. However, when you're talking about we will do the things that we want to do, the way dopamine works in our brains is that dopamine is the motivation chemical. It is not the reward chemical. Dopamine writes a check that the reward chemicals are going to cash.
Ooh.
Right? So serotonin, oxytocin, all the other feel-good chemicals on the other end of doing the thing that we want to do. And so while I don't completely write off motivation, I will say my experience with myself has been that I have to have a clear picture of the future version of myself that I want to become, and I have to really care about who that person is and protect the set of consequences that they're going to be trapped in. And so, like, whenever I'm getting up, going to the gym, going to jiu-jitsu, working hard on building this business, trying to be the best relational and disciplining and loving and safe father and, you know, supportive, all these things that I try to be, it's not necessarily because the payoff is in the moment. Like, I have a teenage son. The payoff is not now.
No.
Hopefully the payoff will be in 5 to 6 years when he's a young man and he finally comes around to that conversation that many of us have with our parents of like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. Like, you kind of knew what you were talking about all along. And then we've like, I've protected that relationship instead of just kind of like smothering it with authoritarianism and demands and criticism. So the payoff is not always now, but there's a future version of my relationships. There's a future version of my physical body. There's a future version of my financial status that I am trying to invest in now. And so that why has very little to do with like my momentary. It's great when it feels good. If I can get something that feels good now, like that's good.
Yeah.
And that does happen quite a bit. But even when it doesn't, I guess the motivation comes from the fact that like I know that A equals, if I do A and B, it's going to equal C down the road. I
have the formula.
What is it? Yeah, please. So I'll stop rambling.
And I agree with this. I wasn't rambling. Most of it was good. I agree completely. None of the things that I find myself doing the most frequently, I'm doing because I'm like, oh, the reward is now. You know, a lot of it is I enjoy doing this because I know it's going to pay off, right? And then of course there's a bunch of things that also like, oh, this is fun while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the formula is P equals W squared plus R, right? W, want, right? We square it because it needs to be, in my opinion, twice as strong as whatever the pain of actually doing it is.
P is pain.
Let me pattern, behavioral pattern. P is for the behavioral pattern. Okay. So the behavioral pattern that gets you towards your end goal is a combination of, what does R stand for? I got to find this again.
Reward, I thought.
Yes, reward. So when you understand what the reward is, and you kind of want it twice as bad as whatever it's going to take to get there, that's how you establish this pattern of, and the example that I used at the beginning of the essay is, Bob is trying to wake up early and he's failing because he doesn't like waking up early. Nobody likes waking up early, minus a few psychopaths, I don't know. But he fails because he doesn't like it, and he hasn't really figured out that it's not about waking up early. It's never been about waking up early. It's about what it gets you. Right? Why am I waking up early? Well, so I don't know, that's just what people do. Well, you're never gonna make that goal happen if you don't have a very clear, specific outline of what that goal is going to get you. And then now I have it. I have what that goal is going to get me. How bad do I want it? Right? Because if I only wanted a tiny bit, well then, yeah, don't do it. It's not gonna happen. Right? But if I need it, right, I very, very much want this squared, right?
Yeah.
And I understand the reward, the actual reward at the end. Well, then it's done. It's good. It's as good as done, right? And the step two is like, okay, well, I don't want it enough. How do I want it enough? Involve people, right? Real friends. Right, that you can actually go to and say, "Hey, help me out with this." You know,
I want to want it.
I want to want it.
And I heard that a lot. Like whenever I was doing my training, I would go to like open 12-step meetings, like Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and they said that a lot. it's just, you got to be willing to do whatever it takes to get sober. You don't have to want to do everything, but you need to be willing to be willing. And it really like struggled in my head of like, what do you mean you got to be willing to be willing? But that's what we're talking about, is like, I know that this would be good for me. I don't currently have a desire. And in like motivational interviewing in a therapeutic sense, we talk about that. That's contemplation. So you have pre-contemplation, which is, I don't have a problem, you have a problem, right?
Yeah.
Contemplation is, I kind of have a problem. Not really willing to do much about it right now, but I know it's a problem. And maybe one day I will consider doing something about it. And then you have preparation, which is, okay, I know I have a problem. I know that a change is going to be good for me. And now I'm going to start researching. I'm going to start lining up my accountability. I'm going to start making a plan to do something about this. I'm going to buy the gym membership, or I'm going to buy the new alarm clock, or I'm going to, build the accountability group in the group chat, or whatever it is that I'm going to announce it, that this is something that I need help with. That's preparation. And then you have activation, where I'm implementing the plans, I'm using the tools, I'm checking in with the accountability people, I'm really, really doing the work toward the thing that I said that I was going to do. And then there's maintenance, once you kind of get into a routine and it's regular and you've built it into your life. And then there's relapse. And that allows for there to be the human element of, it's okay to mess it up. It's okay to like fall off the routine whenever you go. Like I got in a really good rhythm for weeks and weeks and weeks, going to the gym Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, going to Jiu Jitsu Monday, Wednesday, twice, Thursday, sometimes Saturday. I was waking up at a certain time, eating the same things. And then you know what happened? Summer hit. Kids were out of school. We went and we were traveling, and like I didn't have access to the same things. And so then like summer, I just kind of like, I don't know, it was like 6 or 8 weeks I didn't go to the gym. I also like pulled a hamstring and did some other things. But there are those situations where whether it was a decisional failure on my part, or like I had an injury that kept me from going and doing the normal things that I would normally do, that's relapse, and that's okay. So then I go right back into contemplation of like, oh, okay, I still want to do this. I'm maybe not ready to do it now. I need to let things heal, or I need to let things settle down. Yeah. So anyways, that is kind of from a therapeutic perspective of what we're talking about, of like being willing to want it, which is contemplation, which is a very normal stop in the process of a behavior change.
Yeah. There's a couple, I think, interesting touch points in that cycle. I think so. The first one, the less interesting one for me, when you say, all right, I finally realized that I really want this thing, right? We use cold showers as an example, or like ice baths.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
I can't do these. I'm sorry. I've tried. Don't like it.
I've tried it.
Never
too.
will.
Hate it.
So, but let's say somebody's out there is like, you know what? I'm going to do ice baths just for no other reason than to do them, and that's my goal, right? Or whatever the habit is, waking up early and going in and lifting weights, which is another thing I despise. You realize you want it real bad. You've done all the formula stuff, and then that first day you go in and you try to pull your deadlift off the ground, and you're like, I don't think I want this. There's going to be that point in time, right around the first or third, or your first week of trying to establish this new behavior, when you're like, oh, this sucks worse than I thought it was going to. You got to be ready for that. You have to be ready for that. And that's the time when you should go back to the drawing board and say, all right, how bad do I want this? Because now I know how much it actually hurts. Because your brain is always going to be like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. Or not always, but very frequently your brain is going to be like, it's not going to be that bad. And you're either going to realize, oh, it was even easier than I thought, or, oh, it's 10 times worse than I thought it was going to be. And now I'm not sure if my want is so like, mentally prepping people for that is a really important thing. Yeah.
So when you're talking about your formula, P plus W squared equals R. So pattern of behavior plus a double dose of desire, want, or need. is going to equal the reward. In a domains talk, we say your investments, which are the behavior patterns, into your values, which is the outcome that you want for yourself. Combined, if your investments are in line with those true, genuine desires of your own that you have defined for yourself, then you will reap the reward of that. And the reward is simply this, and it's not going to be fancy. It's not going to knock your hair back, but this is it. You will have the experience with yourself that you want to have, that you want to have. Not what your parents wanted you to have, not what your spouse wants you to have, not what your boss or your coworkers wanted you to have, but you will be a whole person exactly the way that you wanted to be.
Absolutely. And this, you were talking earlier about external motivators and like driven, why you don't like the word driven.
Yeah.
Right. And I was thinking about that, and I very much agree with it in the sense that if you are driven by external motivators, it's I mean, I've never sailed, so let me start there. It's kind of like sailing.
Okay, well, cool.
It's like, where's the wind going?
Right.
Yeah. Which, if anybody's listening and they're a sailor,
they're probably like, shut up about sailing.
Completely wrong.
I've never been on a sailboat, and we probably are wrong.
Yeah. But let's pretend we're right, just for fun. Your boat's just going wherever the wind goes. That's what,
Not sure
being
that's
driven
exactly how it goes, because sometimes they can go east and west and north and south regardless.
Don't fact check any of this, but sailing, that I've never done before, is pretty much wherever the wind is going, that's where your boat goes. That's why we don't do it so much for travel anymore, because it's just wherever the wind wants to go.
I still think that might, I don't know. I don't know if you're wrong.
That is exactly how
but I feel like you might be wrong. So someone who has sailed before, please crucify us in the comments if we have messed that up.
Submit it to Benji's
here's the way that I
department.
say it, like in a relationship context. Whenever I'm doing therapy with a client will come in, and their sole goal is to help me, or is for me to help them figure out how to get out of their partner what it is they want to get out of their partner.
Oof, it's another thing I write about pretty frequently.
Right. So I flip the question on its head. Your value is broken. If your value is, how do I want someone else to experience me?
Of course.
You have no control over that.
Zero.
So another way that I heard it said a long time ago is, as a partner, it is not your job to convince your partner to trust you. It is only your job to be trustworthy. What your partner does with your trustworthiness is completely none of your business. And so, like, as a husband, if my satisfaction in my marriage is only dependent on the outcomes and reactions I get out of my wife on a daily basis, there are some days when she is busy, tired, stressed, going through perimenopause, sleep deprived, anxious, frustrated, whatever it is that's going on in her life that has, maybe some of it has to do with me, maybe none of it has to do with me. But if I'm like, oh, well, my satisfaction as a partner is defined by how happy my wife is from day to day, like, I might not feel too good about that. And vice versa. I can be a grump. And so the better question is like, okay, how do I want to experience myself as a husband? And then I start there. So what type of partner do I want to be, to where at the end of the day, regardless of how she felt about it or received it or expressed gratitude or not, I can say, I did a good job according to my own values. That doesn't mean that I shut myself off from feedback and requests that she needs to make because I don't have it all figured out. But I think the starting point needs to be not, how do I be a partner that gets the thing from my spouse that I want to get? We start with, how do I just show up the way that I want to show up? And I really hammer this home with people who are dating, because that's the perfect time to show up exactly the way you want to show up in a relationship. It's way harder when you're married and you've got kids and you've got a mortgage, and then all of a sudden you're like, I need to change the way I'm showing up in this marriage because I don't like the way I've been showing up in this marriage. And then you're locked into this relationship with somebody who's like, wait a minute, where's all these changes coming from? That's not what I signed up for. So this is a lot easier to do when you're dating.
My first number one most popular essay, for some reason, How to Find a Husband.
Yeah.
And it feeds a lot into what you're saying about focusing on the self versus the other person, right? Because this idea that I've seen a lot, especially in like, modern social media, sometimes as jokes, but often not so much as jokes, where people will share this giant, massive list of things they want in a romantic partner that they need. Like, these are my bare minimums, right?
Yeah.
He's got to be 7 feet tall and make $8 billion a year and also have time for me, but also be in perfect shape and not spend too much time at the gym, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
and I'm both genders do this, right?
Yeah.
But anytime that I'm talking with people about this, I find myself reminding them that people change sometimes. You know this as a husband being married. The person that you marry is not going to be the same person 6 months later. And that's fine, because you're not going to be the same person either, because people go through changes, right? And so if you're marrying somebody based on a picture of them, you're gonna have a bad time, right? You have to source your motivations for reasons other than, like you're saying, I'm just saying it more convoluted with more ranting. It can't be, what do I want? What do I want out of them? What are my expectations? Expectations are the thief of joy, right? So I have a 3-domain system that I tell people for what your list should be if you're looking for a spouse, right? The thing that I always say is, A, keep it as small as possible. Like, okay, they don't like the band BTS. Sorry, that can't be on the list. That's way too superficial. The list should be 3 things, right? Shared family goals, sexual attraction, shared faith, right? That's my list that I give out to people, because my belief is that if you share those 3 core critical elements, you can make it work. And that's what a marriage is about making it work. It's not the stars aligned, right? It's not, our 90-step lists are the same and we both, satisfy each other's, requirements. Guess what? That never happens. It's aligning on a set of crucial, critical things, identifying what those are, getting rid of the superficial ones.
Yeah. And the way that I tell people who are dating is I think I'm going to be able to say it better than I tried to earlier, is figure out how you want to experience yourself in these 8 domains. And show up as whole in those domains as being who you want to be, not who you hope that person will accept, right? Not editing yourself to try and be on your best behavior on date 1. Like show up as yourself, like the things you like, value the things you value, and then what happens is, like, you're giving people all of the evidence that they need to make a decision on whether or not they can accept that. So another way of putting it is I heard, I don't know who told me this a long, long time ago, was go ahead and just be yourself, because you're going to show up eventually anyways.
Absolutely. I've always hated this concept of, like, you can't say this and you have to play this game and you got to wait to send a text back.
I tell people that all the time. Like, I was sitting here with a guy who was dating, and he was like, I don't know, like, what is the approach? It's like, do you want to text her?
There you go.
Text her. Just text her. But I don't know if that's going to be too much. Like, should I wait for her? No. Just text her. Stop playing a game. Just if you want to text, because if she appreciates that and values that. So here's what I think we should be looking for in a partner. Do they make it easy for me to show up the way I want to show up? Not do they allow me to just do whatever knuckleheaded bullshit thing that I just want to get away with and be a jerk.
Yeah.
No. But the things that I value, like, one of the things that I had to work out in my marriage is, like, I'm one of my like flaws is that I will kind of lose myself for the sake of trying to make, like, I will do this. I will like edit myself down to be the version of myself that I think my partner is going to like finally validate the most. And what I found about 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, was that one, my wife never asked me to edit myself. So I was doing something that she never asked me to do in the first place. And then whenever I started showing up, even though she didn't like get it and didn't really have the same interest in the things that I was interested in, I became more interesting.
Women love a guy who is passionate about something.
Right. And so that's the thing, is like when you're dating or looking for a partner, figure out how you want to experience yourself, build a life that is invested in those values, and then the partner that is going to be right for you is going to be the person who applauds that. Doesn't want you to minimize or edit yourself down, and doesn't ask you to change your behaviors when they're aligned with your values. They're going to be like, yeah, like my wife has zero interest in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. None whatsoever. She doesn't get it. She thinks that it's silly. She doesn't understand why, like, I actually am limping on this knee almost like a badge of honor. Like, she gets it zero.
I've got to pay that guy the other half of his money, by the way.
Yeah. And she'll listen to it. She'll be interested in it whenever I'm talking about it. And she just like lets me have it. And she's happy that I have a thing.
Absolutely.
Even though it is not at all her thing. Now, if I was like, it's such a big thing for me that if she was criticizing it and meant like making fun of it and like giving me crap for wanting to go 4 or 5 times a week, because it's not just a sport, it's not just an exercise, it's like where I meet guys, it's where I hang out with like you guys are my friends.
I just did a Jim look into the camera.
Yeah.
It's where I meet guys.
Well, you said something earlier that I didn't say.
No,
anyways,
tell me, what was it?
I will tell you off camera because I don't want us to get into, this is not supposed to be controversial.
Oh, okay.
But anyways,
I'm very excited.
Yeah, but anyhow, so like it's where I make friends and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that we've had conversations about how it's more than just a sport. It's where I find community, I build accountability, and yeah. So anyways,
yeah, absolutely. I will say when I met my wife, she was the first person in dating where I was just no script, we're talking as much as we want to talk, and it's just the most natural progression. There's just no second thoughts, or I'm not sitting there studying a text message and thinking about, all right, it's been 10 minutes, can't reply yet. None of that. And since then, since I experienced that, the one and hopefully only time, that's what I tell people. Oh, how do you know? Well, you'll just know. It's just, you know, how do I know that, this person is the one, etc. It's like, it's just going to be a natural thing. Like if you're doing this correctly and you're showing up as yourself, and the other person is feeding off of that in a healthy way, you don't need to like white knuckle it to do everything correctly, and it's going to go very well for you. Yeah. Because that means that you like each other, which I think people forget about. That's the whole point. Yeah. The point is that you like each other, not that you're just trying your hardest to just get through this thing for whatever reason. Yeah, friendship, which is like it's I don't know if it's underrated or just we miss the point of it, but and I know it's different because I live with her and she lives with me, and like we're way more intertwined. But I'm thinking of like all of my other close, intimate relationships and how little I judge them. But then, like, for some reason, whenever I'm married to somebody, it is different. But I think that's the core of it, is like the quality of your friendship with your partner. Yes, is going to be a direct reflection of the quality of your marriage. And so, yeah, I mean,
Anyways, I want her to show up exactly the way that she wants to show up according to her values. I want to be able to show up exactly the way I want to show up according to my values. And whenever those aren't aligned, which I don't think they have to be 100% of the time, we just also have to allow each other space to just be individuals.
Yes, absolutely.
Like Esther Perel says that the erotic in a relationship exists in the space between two people. So not just the sexual eroticism, but the interest and the curiosity and the novelty and the thing that keeps you excited about a person.
Mm.
It exists in the space between two individuals, meaning that gap of mystery and
it has to
discord
exist.
and like the things that we don't share in common that we actually have to talk about and take on perspectives and different experiences and different relationships and things
My
like
wife
that.
thinks that unsalted butter is a thing that people should buy. As an Italian, it's a disaster for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you like unsalted butter? There's a correct answer.
I think whenever you're baking,
No.
And the recipe calls for
You've
unsalted
ever had
butter.
a chocolate chip cookie with a bit of sea salt sprinkled over the top?
yeah, no, you add salt to as the recipe calls for salt, but then if you have extra salt in the butter, then it's going to throw off the
Unsalted
recipe.
butter is a disgrace, Benji. This is a hard line. I will not compromise on this.
I will say I will use unsalted butter in the cast iron skillet whenever I'm cooking a fillet.
Interesting.
Because I've already salted the crap out of the meat.
Interesting. How long have you been cooking incorrectly in your life? Just the whole time?
Yep. Yep. Unsalted. That's what you guys argue about?
We do. Yeah. Viciously. Yeah.
Vicious.
Yeah.
Salted butter versus
And
unsalted
Calvinism versus Arminianism, but everybody
butter. Oh
argues
boy,
about
here
that.
we go. Here we go.
As an MDiv, I know that's something.
I was not an MDiv.
You weren't.
I don't have an MDiv.
Okay.
I have a religious studies degree, but that's just because I flunked out of Bible college after 3 years, and they gave me an associate's in religious studies
Nice.
as a parting gift.
It's very kind of
So
them.
Tiger Woods 2002 ruined my academic career for about 3 years on the PlayStation 2.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, I have a whole spiel on video games. Yeah, for another time.
I'm trying to think of like you and your wife argue about unsalted butter versus salted butter.
Yes.
Trying to like the things that like
She's lucky I even allow it in the fridge, to be completely honest.
I'm sitting here thinking about the last tiff that my wife and I got into, and
No, I mean we jokingly
was
argue.
not about butter.
Yeah.
I wish it was.
Very fortunately, we don't really get into fights. And like people say that, couples should fight. I disagree a little bit. I think I don't think it's the end of the world if you guys are, getting into fights. But I also think there does exist a couples dynamic where you sit down and you have discussions, and then you kind of,
I think you have to have disagreements.
Oh, absolutely.
But that disagreements don't have to spiral up into combat,
Yes.
like emotional combat.
Yeah. Those should be, in my opinion, those should be very rare.
Yeah. And I would say mine and my wife's arguments, like fights, are rare. Yeah, but we have plenty of disagreements. And that's how we know that we are two completely different individuals.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you want to talk about now? Or is this the natural lull in the podcast an hour and a half in?
And now it's been an hour
Well,
and a half
you've been
already.
here an hour and a half. We've been recording, I think, for an hour exactly.
That's good. We could, yeah.
I really like the way the conversation went. It didn't go the way I thought. I like that
You were ready to interrogate me, maybe tie me up. You know the scene in Goodfellas where Joe Pesci walks into the empty room? I was half, getting ready for that. I'd understand,
I had no intentions.
That's good to know.
No, like coming in, like I didn't know what we were going to do.
Oh,
I was just
yeah.
going to start a conversation and just say, see where it went, which I think is great because we landed on this concept of accountability, which we haven't talked about as a value yet, but I think as a value, accountability is so important in all of the domains. Like now that I'm thinking about it, building in some level of connection with other people, letting your values be known to other people, having the trust and the vulnerability with other people for them to ask you about it and encourage you. And thank you. I appreciate that. That discussion was good.
Listen, I have about 100 essays. And
let's talk
after you
about
get
that.
done reading every single one of them, we can come back and talk about.
Let's talk about that. Tell people where they can gain access into more of your thoughts and peer behind the curtain and see how your brain works. It's Substack.
It is Substack, yes.
Okay.
It's normiemacdonald.substack.com, sort of like my pen name, which kind of came about because I was seeing online people would disparage normies, but normies are great. I love normies. And then Norm Macdonald, so I'm a huge fan of, and so I combined the two. But anyways, so I write there, and I try to put out an essay every 2 weeks or so. But the theme is always very similar, about navigating kind of modern life and technology and avoiding those pitfalls, and a lot of relationships based stuff in there as well. And then occasionally I'll go right off the deep end on something random and unexpected. So yeah,
very good. All right. And then do you do a podcast regularly?
Yeah, same platform, same exact platform.
Okay.
My co-host got married, and so we've been on a bit of a break, and we'll probably resume up pretty soon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Anything else you want to tell our 17 viewers and listeners?
To the fan.
This
has been a pleasure.
My mom, actually. It's going to be my mom.
Yeah, I put the salted butter thing in there. For
my mother-in-law will also listen to this.
Ooh.
Which she'll probably be happy about, because I think this is the first one I didn't swear a lot in.
That's good. I'm glad I could have this sort of
I felt accountable
impact
to your
nice. That's actually the thing that I will add, is that I came here to talk about the thing that I've been thinking about most in my life that I want to apply more of,
which is accountability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It requires dedicated, concentrated effort. And I think a lot of people, when you're watching a podcast, you think, oh, you have a subject matter expert on, they have this thing on perfectly. Not at all.
Man, listen, I've got some things figured out, and then some things that I think that I got figured out, I wake up and I look at something like on my phone, like an email, or I open up a bank account or something like that. I'm like, oh, I like, yeah. So I know that we talked about like how unrelatable our schedules are to a lot of people. And like one of the things, like I've been trying to be really regular on like posting about mental health concepts and like the way that my brain works around the topics of mental health on TikTok. And I got into a really good swing of like every single day, maybe 2 or 3 times. And I started to get a little momentum and, some followers and things like that. And then the last 2 or 3 days, I just haven't felt like doing it, because I've kind of been struggling with my own relationship issue here, and like trying to get some business stuff, and kind of back into looking at the way the business is going. And it's not bad, but I've been doing this for 5 years, so I fall into that trap of thinking like I should be further ahead than I am. And so then I have to like,
we should be in the Batman building,
right? Like I have to reset myself and my expectations and understanding of like everything that has to do with this business. But anyways, sometimes I don't feel like I didn't feel like doing this podcast today.
Listen,
because I woke up and I was like, things are not going well.
My alarm went off, and I'm not going to cancel.
No, I wouldn't.
But my alarm went off, and I was like, maybe Benji will cancel.
But there's the accountability piece.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. Like, had it just been like Bo and I were going to look at I was going to look at a camera and answer questions from Bo today, I would have texted you at 7:30 and been like, dude, just stay home. But because there's an accountability, I invited you. You're my friend. Mm-hmm. I know that I have enjoyed this. I'm glad that we did this. I'm on the other side of doing a thing that I didn't really want to do this morning.
And doesn't it work like that every single time?
And the reason I did it was because of the accountability.
Nice.
Which is just, I had not thought about that until just now, of like just how to reinforce the whole point of the conversation we just had.
It's gone full circle.
Full circle.
Amazing.
And with that, let's call it a wrap.
Let's do it.
Are you coming today at noon?
I will be there.
I have to leave a little bit early, but yeah,
Nice.
cool. So the thing,
Awesome.
yeah, stop recording. I don't-